What's going on, everybody? I'm back with another episode with I Overcome with your host, Michael Brown. And I just want to share something very quickly with you on how I overcame. Now, I want to talk to you about anxiety. Anxiety was something I've been going through the whole of my life until about 3, 4 years ago. It was major in school when tests came. It was present when I was playing sports, and it was also present when I was talking to women. And how came over and overcame that, it was encouraging myself through it, talking to myself through that situation. Because if you have anxiety or had anxiety, you know that certain situations actually spark and make you feel anxious. And it's those constant ones. It's those constant ones that make you feel down and make you feel discouraged. What I did was I said to myself, Mike, you are going to encourage others and help others overcome anxiety. This is what you will do down the road. And this is what I'm telling you to do, is encourage yourself for future purposes. Where will you be down the road? How do you see yourself down the road? Encourage yourself constantly and encourage yourself through those situations. And this is a little tidbit or a little way I overcame anxiety. So what is going on, everybody? We have another guest here. I promise that I will be giving different guests every single week on I Overcome. Guests that are icons in our city of Hamilton, and just guests that have overcome certain situations that will help others overcome what they're going through now. And you may have not seen her through anything because that's purposeful. But now I think it's time. I guess it's time because, I mean, you can't go back now. My wife, I said that out loud. I talk about her all the time, whether it's good or bad or learning lessons. It's not really bad, but lessons learned or good things. And now you could put a face to all the stories that I've told you. And Ashley Brown. So we welcome you onto the show. This is a straight raw show. We ask the hard questions that a lot of people won't ask. And are you ready for this?
Always ready.
Oh man, are you sure you're ready for this?
Yeah, I'm ready.
So Ashley, why am I gonna introduce yourself? Tell the people who you are, where you came from, and what you do.
Okay. My name is Ashley. I'm 27 years old.
Say the last name.
Ashley Brown. Yeah. So I'm 27. I've been a nurse for 7 years. I do a lot of things. So I'm a nurse. I worked in lots of different areas. So I started in complex care, went to emergency. I did work in Africa, missionary work out there, pediatric clinics, and I work in women and babies, which I absolutely love. And that's where I've been for the last 4 years, and Africa.
You've been in Africa in the last 4 years?
Yeah.
Okay. No, from now till 4 years, you've been in Africa. Listen, I'm gonna poke her because she's my wife, so I'm gonna do this on the show because that's how I live life. No, well, but yeah.
Yeah. So I've been to Africa in the last.
How long was it?
For a month.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I also am athletic. I help with children's ministry. I grew up as a musician as well, so I have a lot of talents, I guess. And that's mostly everything about me, I would say. I'm a very adventurous person. I love to travel. That's my other hobby. And yeah.
Yes, people, that means money. Dear God. So through being a nurse, you said you were a nurse for
7 years.
7 years. Why? Why 7 years? Why have you not turned back? Why have you said you've been in Emerge? You said you've been with women and babies, and Africa. Why have you not run away now?
Most people, I think, if they've done the things that I have done, I think they would have run away by now. Oh yeah, there's a other thing I forgot. So I'm a motivational speaker at Niagara College to the nursing students there as well. And one thing I always encourage them with is just by starting out by saying, if you're not ready for burnout and always being gone for 12-hour shifts, commuting back and forth home, so you're gone for 14 hours out of your day, no breaks, just being absolutely exhausted and missing holidays and weekends, working nights and days, it can get pretty exhausting. So I always say the main thing to remember is your why. So why you became a nurse in the first place.
Yeah.
And for me, being a nurse was just second nature. So it was something that when people ask me, what are you going to do when you graduated? It was just like, I'm going to be a nurse, of course. Like I grew up, since I was 6 years old, my mom would take me to places, long-term care facilities to feed elderly people. By the time I was 16, I was painting their nails and running the bingo and doing all that kind of stuff. So I really learned to
bingo.
Yeah, so I really learned to care for people. And I also had very sick grandparents. I was constantly at McMaster Hospital doing cancer treatments with them, and just at their bedside all the way up until they passed away. And I just remember feeling, even as a little girl, that I remember the nurses that cared for them, and it really left an impact on me that I wanted to be that person, that nurse for somebody else. So I wanted to make the difference when some other family was going through the same thing that I went through.
You said something that your past, basically just to sum it up, that your past has brought you to where you are now, and it's changed your heart and your state of mind to appreciate the elderly and to appreciate the position that you're in right now. I find that a lot of people take their past. Because I studied in social working. A lot of people have a background in social work. How important is it to actually heal from your past that you don't bring it into your future?
That's a good question. I think for me, it's just knowing that I could be a difference. So you can choose to dwell on your past, or you could take it and you could do something greater with it. So if you've gone through the experience, you actually have a better understanding than another person's going to have. So when they're going through it, you get it, right? Because you're going to get a lot of people in healthcare that are going through certain things, and you're the nurse that's saying, oh, it's okay, and you're providing that comfort. And they're going to look at you and they say, how do you know what it feels like? And you do get that question 1 or 2 times in your career. And I can sit there and say, because I do know what it feels like. And I think when you have that understanding, because you've gone through it, you put so much more compassion and love into it when you're doing it.
Now, you've gone through some training at your workplace with newcomers and different students. When you get that question, like how would you know how it feels? I'm not asking that, but I'm asking you, how important is it to volunteer before you actually commit to the job?
I think, especially with nursing, you go out and you do clinical. And I always say that's a very good indicator to decide if this is for you or it's not.
What is clinical for the people that have no clue of so, what nursing or anything?
So you have in class, and then you have clinical 1 or 2 times a week where you have to actually show up at whatever facility your group gets placed in.
Okay.
And you guys have to do, whether it's an 8-hour or 12-hour shift. So you've got to be there 5:30, 6 in the morning. And then you got to be there all day, and you're given skills to do and tasks to do, and you have to show them, and you have to pass on all these skills. So you see being tired, getting up really early, no breaks, the busyness of the floor.
Yeah.
So I always find that that's a good indicator, because if you really don't enjoy it when you're there, you're not going to like it in the future. So that's always a really good time to understand. But I think volunteering is also very important because with nursing, it's so broad. So you can kind of go anywhere.
Yeah.
So for me, I took my women's and babies. I knew my goal was to be a women's and babies nurse. That was my main thing. Yeah. So when I was a student and I had my rotation on that floor, I took in everything, every opportunity of anything that was happening. I really took it in to make sure that that was the floor I for sure wanted to work on. Mm-hmm. Because in my mind, I said, okay, I got into this for this unit. Yeah. I better make sure I like it.
Yeah.
Right? And for some people that changes. They could go out there and think that, oh, I volunteered with mental health or I volunteered in emergency. I volunteered in emergency when I was in high school. Mm-hmm. And I had a really good experience in there, which made me know that at one point I wanted to start out in emergency. Yeah. But there's some people that will come and be like, whoa, this ain't for me.
Yeah.
You know,
it's pretty extreme.
Yeah.
Can you talk about some of the, like, what's the worst thing that actually happened in emergency?
I'm not allowed to say for confidentiality reasons.
Yeah. Can I get a story? Anything? Just
I can't give any stories. I think one of the hardest things you see in emergency.
Yeah, tell me what's the hardest things you've seen.
I feel like when children die, that's really hard.
That just got really dark.
Yeah, and I've seen it, and to hear parents screaming in pain because their heart is breaking is one of the worst feelings you ever kind of experience. Mm-hmm. You know, and I remember when I started there, the first time I ever experienced that, I said to my coworkers, you know, guys, my heart's breaking. Like, how do you guys deal with this?
Yeah.
And they said, Ash, these are the days that we just go home and we kiss our kids 10 times more before they go to bed, and we hold them a little longer before they fall asleep.
Wow.
Yeah, so you see a lot of different things.
Wow. So I mean, you kind of touched upon the next question that I actually had for you. How do you deal with a patient that's not satisfied?
A patient that's not satisfied?
Because you have like a lot of variables. You got like that patient that's always needy and they just, but then you have patients that are, but how do you deal with a patient that's just not satisfied?
It takes a lot of grace. A lot.
Yeah.
I don't think I've really ever had a patient that was not satisfied with me.
Okay. Well, have you seen it? I've
had them come to me upset about a previous nurse or the doctor and how they treated them when they came in the room. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I'm there as an advocate to be like, I'm sorry that this happened to you, you know, and if they want to take it as far as talking to the manager, okay, here's the contact information, you can vent to them. And then my job then is just to make the experience better as the day goes on. Right? So.
Wow. That's, I mean, I wouldn't be able to. I say, if you didn't like the service, just get the hell out. I think it's time to pack up. I would lose my
job very quickly.
I think it's time to pack up. Here I am working a 12-hour shift, and you gonna tell me, I think it's time to pack up. See, that's just me.
I mean, yeah, you get, especially with the merge, because you get everybody like in the waiting room. I've been here for 5 hours, and I'm like, yeah. And
I have a secret to like the waiting rooms. But I don't think I could say it. I don't think I could disclose
it. Pure secret. There's no secret.
There is actually a secret.
Okay, tell me, because as nurses, we know everything. So I'd tell you if you're right.
No, I can't. Because this is the behind the doors, like the high up. Okay. Anyway, yeah. But so with you experience someone losing a child. Mm-hmm. Now, to date, how do you handle the stresses of your job? What do you do going in? Because, I mean, sometimes, like, I'm not going to act like I don't know you. Sometimes you text me and you're like, yo, this is mayhem. Like, this is crazy. Mm-hmm. Right? How do you handle going in and coming out?
So when I go into work, no matter what's happening on the unit or what's happening in my life, I always make sure that before I walk in the room, that I just kind of calm myself before entering it. I remind myself that I'm not there for me. I'm there for somebody else, and I'm there to make an impact. So how my approach is when I enter a room is going to change the atmosphere. It's going to change the environment for the day. So I always shut everything off, and I know I'm on my assignment for that day. So when I walk in that room, how am I going to impact these people? And I always keep that in my mind.
Yeah. So now we touched upon what you do and different aspects within your job, different avenues that you may go through pertaining to emotions, pertaining to physical things you have to deal with. Now, I want you to talk about your journey. I want you, because your journey is it's almost very mystical. Like, you can't say it without God. But I want you to talk about your journey, how you came from emerge to women and babies now. And talk about your experience, who you are, and all that stuff. Yeah.
Okay. So I was 20 years old, graduating and making the decision to start my career. And, you know, when you go to school, everybody always told me, oh, you know, you're just an RPN. You're never going to work in emergency. You're never going to work in certain areas.
So an RPN is lower
a registered
than an RN?
Practical nurse. I just don't have my master's of science.
So when you have your master's of science, you become an RN?
An RN, correct. So, you know, when I graduated from school, I think one thing in the back of my mind is I never set limits on where I was going to go. I always told myself that, you know, I would always say yes, and I would always take every opportunity to do the best I can, even if it was a unit that I didn't think was for me at that time. And I remember we used to have like the paper resumes, and I called the hospital and I asked them if they had any job openings, and they said, no, we don't have any at this time. And I said, well, is it okay if I come in and I hand in my resume anyways? And they said, well, we don't really do that. I said, well, I'm gonna come in and just give it to you just in case.
Yeah.
So I go in and I gave the girl my resume, and the next day they called me and said there was a job opening. And I remember handing my resume. I'm like, okay, God, give me any job, just not on this one floor that I did my clinical rotation. It was, you know, there's no AC. It was everybody was dependent on the nurses, from lifting, rolling, you know, cleaning them, everything. Like, you were sweating, drenched by the end of the day. And they called me and they said, Ashley, I have a job opening. I said, great. And it was for that unit. And so, you know, with me saying, you know, I'll always say yes to whatever like God has, you know, planned for me, wherever he wants me to go. Not my plans, but his instead. Yeah. I said, okay. I went in. There was 8 other people lined up on the wall, and I went in for the interview, and we had like trach patients at the time, and they had excessive care that they needed, and to learn their care was a lot of work. And when I was a student, I was very familiar with you know, their daily routine. So the manager had said to me, you know, I've got, you know, about 5 more people to interview after you, but I'm pretty sure you're the one I'm going to give the job to. And I got up in confidence and walked out of that interview just feeling great about it. And within a few days, he called me and he said, like, we have the job. Are you wanting to do it? I said, absolutely. I went in, and it taught me a lot of things. I got a lot of skills under my belt, and I dealt with a lot of people that were palliative and in many ways reminding me of my grandparents and whatnot. So it was a really good opportunity to help a lot of families. And within that time, because I was the youngest person on the unit, anytime there was not enough nurses on another unit, if you were least seniority, you get pulled to another unit, even if you don't know the routine of the floor. And they told me the one night, oh, you're getting pulled to surgical. And I was like, oh, no.
Oh, God.
It's been 2 years. I don't do surgery. Like, I don't. And they basically said,
you see the heart, you see the lungs.
They said, you know, you don't have a choice. Like, you have to go. So I went, and they saw my work ethic. They saw my heart. They saw how hardworking I was. And I was a team player. So they liked me. And then they asked me to come back the next day, and I did. And at the time, back then, you could just kind of start other jobs, but you didn't have to necessarily like orientate. They kind of would just randomly pull people from other floors. Okay. Now we don't do that, but I believe I got it at the right time, because it kind of moved me around everywhere. So I went, and I did. And at the time, back then, you could just kind of start other jobs, but you didn't have to necessarily like orientate. They kind of would just randomly pull people from other floors. Now we don't do that, but I believe I got it at the right time, because it kind of moved me around everywhere. So after a few times, they said, "Oh, we have an opening. Do you want to apply here?" So I said, "Sure." And I applied and I got the job. So then I started on surgical. Surgical was great. Surgical taught me, even more skills on top of the skills I had in complex. And sometimes I would get pulled to medical. So then I was going up to medical sometimes. And then from that, the one day my sister is an RN and she works in emergency, and she texted me the one day and she said, "Ash, we're so busy in here." And at the time they said, "We don't take RPNs."
Yeah.
And she texted me, she goes, "I mentioned that, you're willing and that you're a great worker. They said that they'll have you come in. Will you come in?" And it was like my only day off. I just worked 16 days in a row, and I said, "Sure, I'll come in." And I canceled all my plans. I went in and I just ran. I was like the Energizer bunny, and I just went crazy. I just kept helping everybody with everything.
Wow. It was that busy and crazy, eh?
Yeah, it was that busy. Yeah. So I ended up staying actually pretty late for them because they needed a lot of help. And they said, "Will you come back tomorrow?" So then here I was back the next day, and then they ended up liking me and they hired me as well. So I moved from unit to unit to unit. With Emerge, I was still working surgical and Emerge at the same time. And then after that, I got into women and babies. But at the time, I also was going to Africa. So I was kind of in a catch-22 because the job I always wanted and prayed for was at my hands, but I had already paid for Africa, done my fundraising, and was ready to go. And luckily the manager there said that she would hold my position there after a month of going to Africa. So
do you want to hear a funny story?
Sure.
Because it's now coming to me now. Like, when we met and you talked about that you had this opportunity, I didn't understand the degree of it, because I was helping you out and then like just trying to talk you through certain circumstances and stuff like that. But I don't know why every time you said women and babies, I was thinking that you were applying for a daycare. I don't know why.
Nope, not daycare.
I don't know why, but you
sometimes it feels like that.
You said women and babies, and I just in my mind I was like, wait, okay, she works at a daycare.
No.
Yeah. And that's the problem with texting people.
Yeah.
Right? Your own interpretation, like it just didn't even clue into me. Like, I work night shifts, but it didn't even clue into me. There's like, wait, she's a nurse working in women and babies, but I didn't have any knowledge of it.
Yeah, and people don't, unless you have family in healthcare. A lot of people don't know what certain units are.
Let's talk about it. Allow these people to understand what is women and babies. What do you do?
So women and babies is labor and delivery.
Okay.
So I work at the St. Catharines Hospital. Recently got hired at St. Joe's Hospital. And what we do in St. Catharines, we have our ward is like one big circle. Yeah. And it starts from triage, going into your labor and delivery rooms, and then we bring you over into your postpartum, and then you go home. And we also have peds there and special care nursery kind of in between.
So pediatricians?
No, pediatrics.
Pediatrics.
So they're next to us. So our whole floor is like children, babies, moms, labor and delivery. Yeah. With my job, so I do postpartum care. So I take care of moms anywhere from like 2 hours after birth all the way until they go home. Okay. So we're doing everything from learning how to breastfeed, vitals, making sure they're stable, ambulating mom for the first time if she had a C-section, making sure her C-section's okay. Okay. All that kind of stuff. And then like really just preparing them, especially when they're new parents. They're exhausted, learning the routines of a newborn baby, what's proper output of a newborn baby. And just like helping them with stress and stuff too, because you're up all night laboring and then you don't sleep because the baby's not sleeping. And so just being like an emotional support for them, also being their advocate, and also being the advocate for babies sometimes, because not always am I working with moms. I'm sometimes just working with a baby that doesn't have a mother. So there's many things that I do, and I do everything from blood work on babies to their weights for going home, and just making sure that they're healthy and stable at the 24-hour mark, all the way up to 72 hours if need be, before going home.
You have a business, and I know that because I live with you, and your business is very interesting. It's like other products, but it's not. Explain what it is that your products do, and in short, just how did it come about?
So my business is called Booby Busters, and I created it because one of the number one reasons that complaints that my moms would have or concerns was, I don't know if my baby's getting enough. I don't know if she's getting enough milk. I don't know what I have in there. I don't think I have anything. So I had watched over time different people from different cultures coming in, and they're like, oh, in my culture we use this to help your milk, and in my culture we use this to help with milk. And I just began to research things that help with milk production, like boosting your milk production. And shadowing like the lactation consultants, and also doing my own research. I found an interest in breastfeeding and helping moms with breastfeeding, because I find it is one of the most stressful parts of having a baby that they don't tell you about in your prenatal classes. And so I used to have a baking business, so instead of doing that, I decided to make Booby Busters. And Booby Busters is natural products. They're raw. So you have there are other companies. There's like Boone Cookies. There's all these other lactation cookies and things like that from the States. And they're more, their products are cooked, they're dried, their taste isn't that great. And I've heard that complaint from a lot of moms as well. I've tried the Boone Cookies. They didn't really work. They don't taste good. I've done fenugreek teas. I've done this. I've done that. And nothing's helping. And so I made these little power balls, basically. So they're packed with protein, natural products, and with eating them a couple a day, it helps your milk production. And I started it with two friends. They started eating them when they were about 36, 37 weeks pregnant, coming into the hospital, continued to eat them while in the hospital. I was their nurses for both of them when their babies were born. I took over an hour later for one, and the other one I was just there through the whole thing. And being able to coach them through that, but seeing how much milk they had, like colostrum initially was pretty significant. And I remember them saying, Ash, like, you got to share this with more people. And, and then so like there were some friends that it was like, here, I'll make these for you. I've made it for some friends. And then, I got the extra push from you. Thank you. And then I decided,
where's my camera?
So then I decided, well, I think I'm actually gonna give it a try. Why not? Right. And it boomed. So coming from Niagara and growing up in Niagara, it's a very supportive community. So everybody says that everybody's broke in Niagara, but really I find with Niagara, housing's cheaper, everything's cheaper. So everybody's actually...
Wait, don't talk about that. Then everybody's going to go, how am I going to get in?
I just find the community is so strong. So it was just very...
A lot of support.
It was like, yeah, sure. I'm definitely going to support this. And it was so awesome to see all these moms right away, the orders just rolling in. And, and I came from not really knowing much about a business, like to creating my design, to figuring out my packaging and all on my own, because I realized that there was a need. And the need's pretty significant. And I think it just helps. So my slogan is a simple snack, making breastfeeding simple. And it just makes it a little bit easier for mom to know that she has more there. And it's helped moms that... the testimonies with it is moms that, hasn't filled up and it's been 4 months and then they eat, 3 Booby Busters in one day. They wake up the next morning, they're absolutely full. And it's really encouraging to know that it's causing a lot less stress for them and making them feel like, their breastfeeding journey is actually going to be a successful one. And so that's really important to me. And I'm not just some random person that's throwing out information about breastfeeding. I'm a nurse. I work on the unit. I see it every day. I understand it. And I'm always researching my own stuff, and I'm always encouraging my moms. And I think because my passion is women and babies, it just makes me so excited to create something to help my moms.
So where can they find this? Where can they access this? Where can they know more about you? Or about the product?
So my product is on Facebook and Instagram. I'd say my Instagram is a bit more lively than my Facebook.
Okay.
Just because I do a lot more interactive stuff on my stories with my moms, and a lot more posts on there. And moms just inbox me. They let me know, okay, hey, I'm wanting to purchase more Booby Busters, and now I serve anywhere in the Hamilton area all the way down to Niagara. So I have attempted to try to get into some stores, but some don't have refrigerators and things like that. My products are fresh and raw, and that's what makes them work so well compared to other products. And so what I do is I actually go down to Niagara, and I have a bunch of orders, and I have everybody come pick up at an address, and I also store at another address of a family member that is supportive of it and very helpful as well. So that way, if it's a 911, my mom's like, I'm out and I'm running out of my milk, they can go and pick it up. And and then with Hamilton, they just come to my house here and pick up from here.
So coming to a close, if you were to say something to a male nurse or a female nurse, what would that thing be? What would that encouraging or inspiring or motivating thing be that you say to that one person?
I think it's important to not look at the routine of the floor. I think it's important to look at each day as an opportunity to be able to love somebody, to be able to encourage somebody, to comfort somebody, give them the hope that they don't have, and just shut off everything that's happening in your life and just look at it as it's something you should really be proud of. To be a nurse, you have the opportunity to just love on people every single day, and as hard as it can get, and I understand it, the burnout and all those things, it's just important to always remember your why and why you started. Why did I do this? And remind yourself of that.
I think that's great. I don't think I could ask any more. I don't think you could tell me any more that that just will influence me into thinking like nurses are not great people. They're great people. They put a lot out, and they got to deal with so much. But you know how this show goes. As we're coming to a close, if you need any prayer, definitely DM me, and we'll pray for you on the show. I'll pray for you anywhere. Just DM me whatever concerns you have. Tell us how we did. Did we do good? Was this influential to you? Were we influences to you? Was it motivating? Was it inspiring to you? Let us know how we did on this podcast today. So we're just going to close in prayer. So thank you, Lord, for having Ashley on this podcast. Thank you for allowing her to be available through that busy nurse schedule, that you've just set aside a time that she could come and motivate and inspire people and just give them the knowledge and understanding that they need to go out and be the superhero nurses that they were called to be. Any nurses that are now in the field that are feeling that they're burning out, any nurses that are feeling frustrated, feeling like they want to quit, we just ask that you just send your angels just to cover them. Allow them to feel your peace and your love, and just remind them that they were called to this very position because it takes a very certain person to do this very certain job and to take care and be caretakers of humanity. We thank you, God, and we ask that you just touch anybody that is feeling sick, anybody that's feeling down, anybody that's feeling any anxiety of any sorts or depression. We just ask that you love them. You show them your love. You allow them to feel your love. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Believe in yourself, and that's the place to start. And